the question has been asked why it is illegal for someone to engage in prostitution and get paid for it, but you can have a company pay two people to engage in a sex act for the profit of a third. And the answer to that is honestly capitalism. I know it sounds terrible, but Hugh Hefner and Larry Flint are to obscenity and pornography what Henry Ford was to mass production of cars. So what you have in Western cultures then is pornography is industrialized prostitution. In pornography, you have two parties, or however many, who sign a contract that they're willing to do certain things for a certain amount of money, and the third party, which is the company, says, we will pay you to do these things. So you have a set of prostitutes who are brought together to perform an act that the third party profits from. Now, in any other situation, what you have is prostitutes and a pimp. The pimp is making the money. But this becomes a much bigger issue because what you have then now is an organization or a establishment, an industrial establishment, that sole purpose is to devalue, diminish life and the procreation of life for as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. Now, I'm going to tie this in with something, and it may not make sense, but bear me through. In the book of Abraham, Cain slays Abel, and he kills him. And he says, behold, I master this great secret, that I may murder and get gain, that surely the flocks of my brother falleth into my hands. So for generations, then, you have individuals who carried out what Hume calls the mayhem principle, and they would go into a city and they would kill as many people as possible, and they'd take all their goods, but you can only take money from a dead person once. Okay? In pornography, you can kill someone's soul and keep taking money for them as long as they're willing to keep buying something online. Okay? As long as they're willing to keep buying the magazine. So what we have then now is an entire establishment of people who have built one of the most profitable industries in the world off of the prostitution, the contracted prostitution of individuals, which then is sold on the mass market to as many people as possible. And quite frankly, those people become addicted and they keep funneling money back in. Through this route, pornographers have been able to master, in my opinion, the mayhem principle. They don't have to kill anybody's bodies anymore, but they do have to kill their soul and keep them buying. So why is it illegal for someone to engage in prostitution on the streets? Quite frankly, because it can't be regulated. Libertarians will tell you that, I think Ron Paul actually made the comment that, who's a political candidate at one point, that prostitution was protected in the Constitution, and that pornography is the bellwether of a free society. If they could control prostitution and govern it like they do in some places in Europe, it would be legal here. And there's no suspecting that it won't ultimately be. But the real reason why pornography to purchase is legal and prostitution on the street is not legal is because, one, pornography is easily controlled and taxed, and second, they use a free speech argument to make the argument that what they are filming and what they are presenting is speech. But there's no discernible message in speech, there's no cutting commentary, you don't walk away edified, you haven't actually learned anything. Even reading a bad book, you might learn something. But there is no message to be discerned. One last thing before I leave the subject, though, is studies have shown that the brain processes images differently than it processes speech or written word. And the brain processes images in a different part of the brain and much faster. And that when an image is processed, it triggers the fight or flight response. Okay? So when you're reading words and you are discerning a message, you are criticizing it, you are articulating it, you're tearing it apart, you're applying it to your life, and ultimately you're trying to find the meaning of it. Whereas an image is an immediate reaction that causes your body to react in ways that you really can't control. Which is why when people go to scary movies and the monster pops up on the screen in a split second, the entire audience screams. They're not screaming because they generally know what's going on. They're screaming because their body is telling them that they're seeing something which they don't know how to process, and therefore they should run. Pornography acts very much the same way. You process the image before your body has the opportunity to really know what's there. You process an image faster than you process written word or spoken word, and therefore, in my opinion, by that definition, it's very difficult to say that such material is speech per se.